Let's get to refining those edges. So back here with this hair image, if we have our quick selection tool and we just click select subject, it's going to do a decent job selecting our subject because our background is so clean. To take it to the next level though, because we saw that this wasn't perfect, we're going to click the select and mask tool. Here we have a few different options for improving this mask and also these view modes that are going to help us really understand what is being selected or not. If you unclick this or click the drop down for view, you can see these different view modes to kind of see exactly what our selection is. Onion skin just has that transparent background. The typical, this is the view we saw before with what they call the marching ants selection. Overlay is the standard look, which I think is pretty good, and you can actually increase or decrease the size or the opacity and change the color of the overlay. And then there are a couple other options down over here on the right hand side, like high quality JPEG, show original. These are things that you don't see any difference because we haven't made any other adjustments yet. So if we continue moving down this properties panel, you see some options. Edge detection. So if we click on smart radius, you should start to see that it's going to improve the edge even more if we increase this radius. So let's zoom in here. So you have the zoom tool over here, and you can see as I increase the radius pixels, it does a better job making that selection of the edge. Now it's not going to be perfect though, and so this only goes so far, and depending on how high quality the image is that you're working with, the higher the pixel radius you're going to have to do. The other options down here, global refinements, these aren't really going to help make the selection better. It's just going to change how the edge looks. First, you have your smooth, which is going to kind of like smooth out the selection. So let's actually change our view to this black and white view. So you can kind of see now what that smoothing does. If we take it from 79, make it 0, you see how at 0, you get sort of these edges that aren't perfect. Feathering is going to do exactly what it says, feathers the edge. Sometimes this might help it look better depending on what the background is, but I think that's also one of those things that can look a little bit amateurish if your selections are super feathered. Contrast is going to try to look at the contrast in terms of color and light to help make the selection even better. So you can see here that it's starting to make it even sharper, a sharper edge if you increase that contrast. And then shift edge is just going to shrink your selection or make it bigger. Now it takes a minute for it to process. If I drop the feathering and the smoothing, it'll probably work faster. But see how if we go from 100% shift to negative 100% shift, come on, Photoshop. It's going to increase or decrease that edge. Now, if we look at this, it's kind of hard to tell, but by decreasing that, you're just kind of getting rid of parts of your selection that you want, right? There are other tools that are going to help us though. So I don't know why I'm scrolling over here, because what I want to do is actually just take my mouse over here to these tools over here. So in this view, you have a typical quick selection tool, which is pretty much exactly what we used before to make selections. You can change the size of the brush. Remember, with any of these brushes, Control Option on a Mac, Command Alt on a PC to increase or decrease the size of that brush. This is going to be a lightsaber. Star Wars is coming out next week. Gotta see that, lightsaber. And so you could go in here, we could kind of subtract this area. Yeah, this is going to take a lot of time. So that's not really exactly what you want to do. The next option, though, is the Refine Edge Brush tool. This is exactly what you want if you are editing a photo like this. So see how this is brushing on and removing that white background, but even here where the selection wasn't completely made, before, you see the hair that's not selected, we can brush over that, and it does a really good job knowing that that is hair that we should select. Remember, spacebar to use our hand tool so that we can quickly move around this. It even knows in here, if we're painting in here, that that white background is what we want to be getting rid of, right? And this works really good on hair, but it can also work good on any other sort of detailed edge. So I've increased the brush size because this does a pretty good job if you're moving pretty quickly around our edge, just to show you. Pretty incredible what Photoshop can do. And this is a semi-recent addition to Photoshop. It's just gotten better and better over the years. So that's pretty darn good. And now again, if we have our edge detection on, or if we want to show edge, now we can choose show the edge, and that's really what you want to do, just paint over the edge. And then with our edge detection and smart radius on, it's going to improve that selection even more. Okay, so let's zoom out here. So now we have a really good selection of the subject and the background. Now, I don't really think I need to go over these other tools at this moment, but I want to just mention them in case there is a case study where you're going to be using them. But we also have a object selection tool within this view. So this might be something where you have a photo of, say, like multiple buildings or something, where you made a selection or multiple people even, and it completely forgot to make a selection that you wanted it to. The object selection tool might do good at selecting a completely new object in this view. It's not going to help improve the edges of things, though. And this paintbrush tool, it's kind of a weird tool, but it's just kind of a paintbrush where you can paint on or off. So if I paint, it's basically adding that to my selection, right? Or I could subtract that. You could come up with some kind of cool selections. But this is basically what our selection is going to be, everything that's white, right? And so that doesn't make sense. But in some case studies, maybe you want just a thick paintbrush that's not doing anything intelligently. It's just painting on or off, just like so. To undo anything you do in here, you can also press this undo button right here. All right, so now we have the selection. What do we do? Well, first, let's go back over to the right-hand side and choose Output Settings. What we can do is output to a selection, which basically what that means is we'll go back to the main Photoshop view, and this will be selected. And then we can go from there. We can create a new copy, we can create a layer mask out of it, or you can have this already selected here. Layer mask, new layer. You can create a completely new document or a new layer with layer mask. So let's do that actually. So you see, you can check remember settings so that it will always do that in the future, which will make your workflow even better. You also see this decontaminate colors. This is if you have like some color, depending on your lighting situation, maybe you're using like a green screen or something, and the edge of your subject has like a greenish glow because it's just reflecting off the green screen. Checking on that decontaminate colors button will help with that and make the edges or the colors of your subject better. But since this wasn't on a green screen and the colors actually look nice, I'm not going to select that. So now I'm going to make sure we're on new layer and with layer mask and click OK. So now we have this new layer with the layer mask. We can always go back and make adjustments to the layer mask. We could add a solid color background. Say we want to make the background a different color. Put this in the background. Now we have our lady on a completely different background. The edge, her hair looks pretty darn good. You could probably go in and do a little bit more to make it look even better, but to me this looks pretty darn amazing, and that's just using that refined edge tool and the select and mask tools in Photoshop. Cool. So I hope this helps you when you're making your selections, and we'll see you in the next lesson.